welcome everyone. Firstly, let's get started. This is Climate Minded, and my name's Ursula, and this is a part of the Auckland Climate Festival that Michelle very kindly and has brought to the city, which is really exciting. It's really nice to see a climate festival that's digital and interactive and beautiful, and it's really like easy to get involved in, so congrats on that. Nice to have you here. So you must have all been attracted to this workshop for a reason, maybe some interest in mindfulness, well-being, and also in the environment and cutting down carbon emissions. I'm going to start the workshop with my pepeha, which I'm learning. So you have to bear with me and give me positive affirmation on giving it a go. I'm not sure if many of you guys have learned your pepeha, but I'm learning it, and here we are. No England, Ireland, Scotland, oko tipuna. E tai mai oko tipuna ki Aotearoa I Tito 1855 to 1875. So my ancestors come from England, Ireland, Scotland, and they came on a boat to New Zealand between 1855 and 1875. Ko Kathleen and Ken Griffin, ra ura Ursula and Duncan Lockhart, o ko mātua. That's my grandparents, Kathleen and Ken Griffin and Ursula Duncan Lockhart. E noho ana o ki Tamaki Makaurau. I live in Auckland. Ko tēnei mihi ki ngā tangata whenua o te rohi nei. Ka mihi hoki o ki ngā tohu o te rohi nei. Nō reira tēnā koutou katoa. I'm acknowledging the people of this land that we are upon and those that have been before us. Welcome to this workshop. So I wanted to just drop in with a pepeha and acknowledging the people and place that we're in. And from I'm sort of going on a journey and looking back into my Celtic ancestry and how we can bring, as Pākehā, bring that wisdom forward. So thank you. And now we're going to jump in to you guys. So I have a task for the first thing that you're going to do is you have a minute and you are going to go get up and find 3 items in your house. So one that represents nature, the natural world, the other that represents well-being, potentially something that helps you support your well-being, and the third is something that you see to be degrading for the environment. Okay, so something that represents the natural world, something that supports your well-being, and one thing that you see to be degrading. So you have a minute and get up and go and find something. Those 3 things. Okay, go. So when you're back and you're ready to go, just give me a little thumbs up on your box or in real life. Cool. So now that you've got these 2 things, I'm going to put you guys into breakout rooms, and all you're going to do in those breakout rooms is just share to each other about the pieces that you've brought and why they represent these 3 things to you. Okay? And I'll bring you out when you're ready. It'll be about 5 minutes of sharing. What have you got?
I went and grabbed, some of them I didn't have physically. So in terms of wellness, I grabbed a book that I've got on loan from.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
The best.
So it's actually Georgia Burton's book, which I picked up recently. And one thing in particular that said to me was that I'm not climbing the ladder to perfection, I'm unfolding into wholeness. And that at the moment is really the mantra I'm kind of taking to keep moving and take steps, even if they're not necessarily the absolutely perfect step, but to keep moving.
What was that again?
So I'm not climbing the ladder to perfection, I'm unfolding into wholeness.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
unfolding really into wholeness.
Yeah, and that comes with everything within that. I think sometimes that's what I need to keep going, to keep taking steps along the way.
Cool. I think Marina's joined us. I'm wondering if she's probably like, what's going on? But we're all currently in breakout rooms, just sharing about 3 items that we've gone around our house and found that represent these 3 things.
Kia ora. Yes, so sorry I'm late. I got held up with work, so you have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, so run around your house frantically for 30 seconds or a minute and find something that represents the natural world, something that represents well-being, and something that represents environmental degradation.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And then we'll... Yeah.
Right, we'll carry on without me then.
Okay. What else did you find, Bridget?
So in terms of the natural world, I've got a group of little seedlings at the moment sitting on my windowsill in the kitchen. I'm just careful not to sneak out there while my kid's sleeping. Okay. But a bunch of seedlings at the moment coming from ready to be planted into the garden any minute. Just put down lots of compost from the worm farm. And so kind of got those little ones looking ready to go. And in terms of degradation to the environment, again, not something I can physically grab right now, but been thinking lots about the way we power our house. And we do currently, we're in a really old building and we've got gas, hot water heating and gas cooking. And it's just been on my mind as we've looked at our home and our consumption within the home. How can I switch that more and more, looking at the times that I use my electricity and who I choose my electricity provider, and then the kind of gas component is there as well, obviously, as thinking about consumption of fossil fuel resources.
LPG. I haven't looked a lot into the impact of LPG, to be honest. They say it's renewable.
Yeah, for me, with the company I'm working for, we've done a lot of working with Toy2 and carbon emissions, and actually Alex, who's in here, has been working with us on that. And one of the big things we found, one of the biggest carbon emitters from our buildings was gas. So I've thought about that from the business side and now starting to go, okay, well, what does it mean in my personal life as well?
Yeah. Cool. Okay, well, I brought, as my degradation piece, was this roll of Glad wrap that's in our drawer that my friend got given from a photo shoot that they were going to throw away, and she thought, well, we might as well use it, and I've been having a real issue with it. And I brought, for well-being, I brought this stone that is grounding for me. And then for the natural world, I got a piece of Palo Santo wood because it was close to me. But yeah, Brian, did something happen in your room?
Yeah, I was waiting and nobody else was in it. So
okay, well, join us. Sorry, Marina's here now too. Do you want to quickly tell us what you brought?
Yeah, sure. I brought some flowers. They were just near. They're from the garden, which is really nice to be able to have that here for connection. Singing bowl. That is represents a lot of my journey with my connection with my well-being. And my phone as environmental degradation. even though it's really helpful. But
Yeah, really
I
entertaining.
thought that's of all of the things that were close to me, I thought this is it.
Marina, would you like to share?
Sure. I didn't find a whole heap, but in the time frame, I didn't bring any of the plants from my room because I thought they were actually a bit too big to lug across the house. But that's natural environment. Well-being. Got my little journal. Oh, I've got blurred screen, so you can't see, but
cool.
That helps with well-being and lockdown sometimes, and reading back and reflecting on previous thoughts. I think that's really good for well-being as well. Environmental degradation. I just found this smart plastic bag in our room, which is a jumper that my boyfriend ordered, which was made out of recycled cashmere, I think. So that's good. But plastic, so no-brainer.
Cool. Okay, I'm going to bring everyone back in because cool. Welcome back, everyone. Hope you had fun chatting about 3 different little items you may have found, or big items you found in your whare. We'll be coming back to those items a little bit later in the workshop. For now, we're just going to drop into a little bit of a mindfulness practice that we teach at Remind. It's and a lot of different practitioners teach it. It's called box breathing, and it's a really simple tool that you can use in times of overwhelm or stress, or just when you're wanting to come into your body. I did it before this workshop, for example. And basically, I've actually got a that kind of move across. Yeah, this is a diagram around, it's basically we're drawing a box with our breath. So you can see we inhale for 4 seconds, I'll guide you on, hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, hold. And we do that, we're going to do it for about a minute. And we'll notice, well, what's happening in our body is that we're coming out of our parasympathetic into our sympathetic nervous system and relaxing. So you can choose to close your eyes, or you can keep your eyes open, finding a comfortable seat, maybe putting both feet on the ground, back straight. And we'll just begin to breathe in through our nose together, inhaling, and just sighing out the mouth. Do a few clearing breaths just to get ourselves into this practice. So inhaling through the nose, sighing out the mouth. Beginning to inhale again through the nose. One more breath like this. And sighing out the mouth. We'll begin to practice box breathing with an inhale of 4 counts. Inhaling 2, 3, 4. Holding 2, 3, 4. Exhaling 2, 3, 4. Hold the breath again. 2, 3, 4. Inhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Hold. I'll let you now guide yourself on a couple of rounds of this breath. If your mind gets distracted from the counting, the breathing, you just come back. Start again. Beginning, final round of breathing here. And letting go of that breath. Coming back to natural breathing and opening up the eyes if they're closed gently. Coming back into the Zoom room. So just potentially acknowledging how you're feeling now after practicing that breathing, and if it's different to how you were feeling before. I personally usually feel like I just feel a little bit more at ease. There's a sense of like everything feels a little bit more okay, if that makes sense. And that's the power of these breathing techniques and mindfulness techniques, is they can really switch the way that we're feeling in a situation. And today we're here to talk about mindfulness and climate action and how those two things relate. So mindfulness as a definition is to be aware of the present moment without judgment. So you open your senses to exactly what is happening right now. In contrast to that, you could think that our wandering mind is taking us into the future and the past, and we think about all these different things, and we come up with these whole scenarios. We go into all of these thought forms. We maybe reminisce on things that we may have liked or not liked, or our mind takes us out of the present moment into wandering thought form. And mindfulness is when you are fully present here without judgment. Because when we begin to judge, we begin to wander as well very quickly. So how can mindfulness partner with climate action? I know in my own personal experience, it can feel, when it comes to the climate crisis, that it's really overwhelming, that we have so much to do, and we have to cut half of our emissions in under 7 years to save ourselves from this picture that has been painted for us, which is kind of feels really catastrophic, and it becomes quite overwhelming. And you're like, ugh. Honestly, I get frustrated at everyone. I get like, why don't you get it? So my communication style begins to become, when I let that overwhelm be it, my communication style becomes quite like desperate and angry and nearly like yelly, which we know is not very effective in making change. And mindfulness, or becoming, so I don't know what that was, if that popped up on your thing, but mindfulness is becoming more of or recognized as a tool for keeping us calmed, centered, building creative thinking capability, building compassion and intention in the changes that people can make in their lives. This is some of the science that I pulled out of from, there's not really been a lot of really conducive science that is showing mindfulness and climate change. However, it's really, really like there's a lot of momentum and there's a lot of work being done about how we need new ways of thinking and more bolder ways of thinking, leaning into indigeneity and leaning into Eastern philosophies. And there's that quote by Albert Einstein that I sent out that is, you can't solve problems using the same thinking that you used to create them. So we're really leaning in now with climate action into a space of willingness to shift, and mindset has been acknowledged as one of the most potent ways to do that. So there's an organization in Wisconsin called Mindful Climate Action. It's at this University of Wisconsin Family Medicine and Community Health department, and they have created a whole program around mindful-based stress reduction and climate action. And so they're beginning to generate data around how these two things are linked. They started in 2019, so it's only been 2 years, and whilst within a pandemic. But there's been lots of literature reviews on these different connections. And what they're already finding, and what the hypotheses are, is that mindfulness can shift automatic habits and bring more intention into the choices we make. People that practice mindfulness have a greater capacity for compassion and expanded awareness of the world around them. And I really want to drop into all of you to share, if you feel called, an experience where mindfulness may have done this for you, or a mindset shift that may have expanded your awareness. I know that personally, when I'm in the forest going on a bushwalk and I drop into some mindful walking and open my senses and stop just chatting to my best friend about something else, we drop into our senses, which you practiced it yesterday. Noticed our breathing, noticed our sight and sound, and it generated for us a real sense of connection and oneness with the bush that we were walking in. It made us feel more of a part of it. And my friend even noticed that. She was like, oh, whoa, isn't it crazy that the oxygen that those plants right there are producing, we're breathing in as we're exercising? And I was like, yeah, that is amazing. Like, that's a really great thing to notice. And it sort of triggers that little shift of awareness, which they're saying gives us a greater capacity to change. Does anyone else have an experience where mindfulness may have enhanced their awareness in an ecological sense? It sort of comes back to this slide as well.
I was just going to agree with what you were saying. For me, when I started practicing mindfulness a few years ago now, I think I was living in the city and living such a busy life, and it was like I was moving so quickly, trying to get from one place to the other. I wasn't really noticing what's going on around me or noticing the world. I'd just be walking so quickly, walking in such a rush, getting to the train station. But when I actually stopped and was way more present in what I was doing, I was noticing the world around me, noticing the beauty and the nature, and making me appreciate it more, which then brought change into my life, wanting to look after Mother Nature and look after the world we're living in, and hoping that it's always going to stay this way, this beauty that we have. And there's also another meditation technique, soles of the feet, where you focus your feet on the ground and you're walking. And I think for me, that practice where I just walk and I notice my feet gives me that connection to the earth and connection to Mother Nature too, which then brings change into my life and wanting to look after the world even more so through that present being. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Is anyone else? Yeah, Brian.
I can share. Yeah, I think that for me, I got started in everything that I'm doing in terms of climate action because of my journey of connecting to myself, and by connecting to myself through practices like mindfulness, that enabled me as well to connect with what was outside of me without any separation. And that meant connecting to our Mother Earth, connecting to nature, and understanding my behavior in terms of that, but also with other people, and understanding how to see them as the same, and how to see that there's no separation, and how to be able to include and work within that space. So for me, mindfulness and meditation and a lot of more body-based practices was what led me to this place of working in climate action.
Cool. And what do you think were the conditions that sparked that change? Like, what were, in terms of the climate action, like what were the conditions in the mindfulness practice that allowed you to change?
For me, that was, I actually started to see what I was doing. And that meant that I noticed how much I was consuming needlessly, and what I was eating and putting into my body, and the impact that it had on the environment and on myself.
Cool. Thanks, Brian. Yeah, there's definitely the thing with mindfulness is I feel like has been put into a box of being for mental health and wellness or a spiritual practice, where the potential of mindfulness I see is so much larger when we begin to increase awareness around how we're consuming and how we're behaving, and beginning to become aware of the world around us. We begin to have local impact, change our own behaviors, change our own consuming, put our money, into more mindful or conscious consumption, and then that begins to change the systems. So it's sort of taking the power out of the politics and into our own personal houses and lives, which for me is quite empowering, where that overwhelm can be like, oh, what are we actually doing? What's our government doing? How are we changing all these policies? And bringing it back to myself and how I can act. Yeah. Does anyone else want to share anything about how when they may have seen a change in their life? Yeah.
I can share thoughts. Actually, for me, interestingly enough, it's in relation to getting the festival off the ground. So I totally identify with so much of what you've talked about, but in particular, kind of the doing overwhelm aspect of climate change. And for me, that was a lot of that was actually manifesting in my body, like my stress response to that was manifesting in my body through doing double vision. And so I actually went on a course which was all about rewiring my neural pathways for more positive thinking. And some of, there were quite a lot of these sorts of techniques that we got taught, which was really amazing. And the interesting thing about that for me was that for a start, my eyesight got heaps better. So my stress response was, I was going from fight or flight mode and kind of like way calmer internally. And also, speaking to your other point, my creativity just got really like a switch was turned on. And then in relation to that, I also just felt a really strong conviction to like things were just so much clearer for me, particularly in terms of climate action. And it really like compelled me to quit my job and like get this going. It was kind of like the step that I needed almost to just kind of open my mind up and see really clearly again. So yeah, kind of moving from that feeling of paralysis and overwhelm and then into a place of, I guess, more hope and optimism and clarity. Yeah.
Can you see the potential for mindfulness in organizations around encouraging climate action? Like, can you see what sort of potential can you see there in terms of this being actually taken seriously or rolled out?
Is that a question just for me or for everyone?
For you. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I see this as being a really big opportunity. I think personally, from my experience and from talking to people across a large range of different organizations, there is a lot of paralysis particularly with the messaging around climate change being so, doom and gloom and fear-based, which, the reality of the situation is dire in many ways. But yeah, I think the only way that we can really move through that is with optimism, and the only way you can really get optimism is if you feel like you are empowered to make change, I think. So yeah, I think it is a huge thing. And it was actually interesting, I don't know if any of you tuned into a talk last night on climate leadership and Tamaki Makaurau, and there were people that were speaking. There was a lawyer, 2 lawyers, and then Te Aroha Grace, who's from Ngāti Whātua Ōrākei. And you would have thought that a lot of the conversation around that would be kind of making bold decisions and blah, blah, blah. And it kind of started like that, but then it moved to actually a focus on emotions and the importance of emotions and the importance of empathy and all that. And that's kind of what they ended up talking about for most of the session. So it was really interesting. I really encourage you guys to watch a replay of that.
Cool.
Yeah, they made that connection really strongly, and it was so beautiful. Like they were all, like all the speakers were almost quite like surprised that that's where they got to as well. Becca, you sound as though you went to that as well. So yeah, definitely, I think I'm so all about this.
Yeah, and it's interesting because a lot of the reports that get put out around climate change, and the Aotearoa Circle, the finance report they put out last year, the main kōrero at the beginning was mindset, number 1, mindset shift. And I find it really exciting that that's coming forward as as being one of the leading ways. And how are we implementing this? How are we designing how are we creating the conditions to change the mindsets? And mindfulness being one of those tools, and mindful walking. And because mindfulness specifically is a way of being, as I said before, it's noticing the present moment as, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, noticing the present moment without judgment and the things in the present moment. And then there are ways that we can build this. So what they're finding is that this practice of mindfulness builds the strength in the prefrontal cortex, which is where we have a lot of emotional regulation, imagination, intuition, our personality expression, all these really good things. And so we can actually thicken it. And we like to encourage the practice of meditation as a way to thicken it. There are other informal practices such as mindful walking, drinking a cup of tea, in full presence. It's anything that you're practicing in the present moment. And then you notice that you wander away and your brain starts thinking about what you're having for dinner, or the color of the pencils in front of you, which is what I'm saying. And you just guide yourself back. And it's that guiding back to the present moment, which is where the science is, and which is where we build the strength of our prefrontal cortex. And that's the neuroscientific background of mindfulness. But what we are seeing is that there's actually potential for greater impact than just our prefrontal cortex, because there are cascading effects from the strengthening of our prefrontal cortex. We begin to influence behavior and habits, and we begin to gain greater self-awareness and awareness of nature around us, which then in turn is another effect and cascades on to caring more. And when we care more, we feel more, and we have more will to want to actually change. Because until humans actually feel it in their bodies and want to make a change in their own life, it doesn't. Yeah, the intellectual thing isn't working anymore. The watching of all of the Netflix, and they do make me feel though. But reading of the reports, it's sure, we understand the science, we understand it, it's really dire and we need a change. But until I truly felt it and it made me emotional, was I then able to actually change how I behaved. This is, what's the time? 1:13. Yeah, wow. Okay. So I want to bring it back to our own lives and these things that we went and found before and we shared. we're going to jump back into a breakout, and the next sharing that we're going to do with these groups is, can you notice any connection between these three items? So the three items that you brought to the table: the natural world, the degrading piece, and the piece for well-being. Can you notice any connection? And just discussing with your partner where these connections may be, and yeah, have a little play with that one. I'll send you back out, and we will be back to discuss quite quickly because we've only got 15 more minutes. What do you see as a connection between the three things that you brought forward?
So I've got a book, some seedling plants, and a bottle of gas. And I guess I can bring it back to, and maybe this is going too far into the intellectual, which is what
we love
it's what I tend to do, but you're so right in that's harder way to get to the feeling. But the first thing I think of is like the paper to make the book, and that existing in the ground alongside the seedlings and the plants, and then where does the kind of gas component fit into there, and that sitting in there from, like, you know, thousands of years being deep in the ground, and we're saying, hey, let's extract that and use it fast and use it quick and heat this. It really, I guess, continue to speak to that need to slow down. Like, we want to be able to use things that, you know, we're not taking from generations ago and gas that's been stored in the land for thousands of years, and we're, you know, taking it out and cooking really quickly. It's that slower kind of cycle. And I guess for me, lockdown has been great in encouraging the kind of slowing down, which has had a big impact on probably consumption within that as well. Just going, I can spend more time at the resource store, and I can spend more time in my garden, trying to, you know, keep food source as local as possible. And all of those things can exist in any world if I carve the space for the time. Maybe that's where they're all linked somehow, is in relation to time. Time, yeah.
Journaling, you have to create time for journaling. You're not just going to do it. What was your other one? Was the seedlings take time?
Yeah,
grow,
yeah.
And LPG takes millions of years.
Yeah.
And the LPG in a way has taken the most time, and we use it the fastest.
Like that.
We use it without even thinking about it. Whereas to create time to journal was like, I've got to like make an effort to take time to journal. And when we're watching seedlings grow, we're like, oh, and then you see them come out, you're like cheering them on, you're like
yeah, it's so exciting. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to move you to the bigger pot today, and then you're ready to go into the ground, and then, you know, and when you eat them, it's so exciting. And
they actually take less time than you think they're going to take. Like when you plant them in the ground, then you're like, oh my god, there's already a cauliflower. Like, I swear I only planted it.
And I think same with lots of things with lockdown, like, you know, more and more time at the resource store. Again, it takes less time than you think. You're like, that actually wasn't that hard for me to make that choice over grabbing something packaged from the supermarket. Like that wasn't a big deal. It feels like the right thing to do. I've seen myself prioritize that time, and it works, and it feels good in the process as well. Yeah, I think time. Thank you for helping me find that connection between the three. That's cool
thing to find. I'm gonna bring back the crew now.
Wonderful.
Welcome back. I think that's everyone. So just really quickly, what did you guys notice? What did you notice? Is there anything cool that came out that was unexpected? Do you thinking about what is the difference between your thinking of your items from before and then now?
Charlotte's very good at articulating herself, so I nominate Charlotte to talk about it.
I I was just saying, yeah, I guess like all around awareness and self-awareness. I think when I had my book around like meditating, and I thought that when I look after myself and look after my well-being, then I have the energy and the time to look after the world around me as well. And just talked about how I was super busy, like I said last time, and found no time to, like this a few years ago, I was like, oh, I can't recycle at the moment because I'm so busy, and you can just be like moving so quickly. But actually, if you take time to pause and look after yourself, then you can, look after the world around you and put energy and time into that. It's kind of what I was talking about. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what do you need to look after yourself?
Yoga, mindfulness, like any kind of training to be in the present, I think, and connect in with myself. And then you can, look after the world.
Cool. Are you going to say something, Brian?
Yes. And with Marina, we were chatting, and I took 3 things away from what we were talking. One was how everything comes from our Mother Earth, regardless of which of the 3 objects we have. And then time, how long it takes for something or why something is done in that way. It's based on the time that we're going to need it and how fast we are living. And then the other thing was, as Charlotte was just saying, that connection with ourselves to understand our own behavior. So slow living as a thing.
Cool. Slow living. Olivia?
I guess kind of following on from what Rebecca put in the comments, was that when you give time to think about things, you can actually draw quite a lot of connections there. Because I guess like when I initially chose my 3 items, and if I thought, I don't think I could have really drawn any connections off the bat, but then when you actually think about it, and I guess that kind of ties into being mindful and expanding your thoughts and kind of being present a bit more in that way. You can actually draw quite a lot of connections between things, which I just thought was quite interesting.
Cool. Anyone else? It's funny, we had a connection to time as well, Brian, and our sharing. It was like this. Do you want to talk to that, Bridget? Or do you want,
Yeah, I can. We talked a little bit about time. My 3 items, I had a book about meditation and some seedlings for growing in the ground, and not physically holding, but we're talking about a bottle of LPG gas. And we were talking a little bit about all of them being related to time, and thinking about kind of carbon emissions and the bottle of gas, and that being gas stored in the earth for thousands of years, and for us to kind of extract it and use it really quickly, compared to the idea of kind of growing your own plants at home and taking the time to pause and reflect. And I was kind of reflecting on this lockdown, and it's been great for me in taking more action and just appreciating how, as Brian was saying, just that slow living, and it is possible, and I can bring that into any aspect of life by making those conscious decisions and giving myself the time to do that. So that was how we eventually found that connection between all of the items.
Yeah, and the time in the earth, like the wood that made her journal, or the paper that made her journal, was growing in the same earth that the seedlings were growing in, and that the LPG is stored and made from. Is LPG made from carbon? I'm assuming it's made from carbon. I don't know the science behind it, but probably stored in the earth and then used probably the fastest. You have a journal for nearly a year, and in seedlings they have this whole concept around time of like watching the seeds propagate, and then cheering them on as they grow your cauliflower. Then you eat the cauliflower. Anyway, just bringing our awareness to that shift of thinking of of interconnection with these three items that may have seemed to be separate, three different topics: well-being, nature, and degradation, and finding the interconnectedness of those three things, and how we as humans in the part of that system are interconnected with all other parts as well, which gives you a sense of self-responsibility in a way. Is we're responsible for this planet, and we're responsible for what we consume and what we waste, or how we behave in relationships with other people and how we treat ourselves. And mindfulness and meditation is an incredible tool and science-based now, that, you know, it's not just being taught through religion or tradition, it's now coming and being supported by Western-based science methodology. So knowing that this tool can help us in so many more ways than just one. And it's really, I see it as the foundation of a lot of local change and personal change, and therefore global change. So we are a couple minutes off closing out this workshop. I want to, what do we want to do? Do you guys have any questions, or do you want to have another breathing practice meditation to end? There is also a passage out of John O'Donoghue's book that I thought I might read as well. That final one? Okay. The part of my, one of my intentions for this workshop was to create a sense of friends in the work. Like, I really didn't want to come in here and just like sort of preach to you guys about the science behind mindfulness and what the brain is doing. I really wanted to create a sense of we're all doing this together and as equals, and when we're working on our own self-discovery and our own, like, keep taking care of ourselves, it can be emotional, and it can be like you can feel things. And I know when I start to tune into the effect of what's happening to the planet, it can make me feel really, you know, sad as well. So just wanted to bring everyone here together as like, we're in this together, we're all human beings, and we're all on this earth, and we all have value in sharing around our minds, our mindset, and how that plays out in our lives. So John O'Donoghue, I'm not sure if any of you have any Celtic ancestry. He is really, really, really great to connect with. On that sort of, you know, PPR, looking at our ancestry. But this passage is called "Thoughts Are Our Inner Senses." So our life in the world comes to us in the shape of time. Consequently, our expectation is both a creative and constructive force. If you expect to find nothing within yourself but the repressed, abandoned, and shameful elements of your past, or a haunted hunger, all you will find is emptiness and desperation. If you do not bring the kind eye of creative expectation to your inner world, you will never find anything there. The way you look at things is the most powerful force in shaping your life. In a vital sense, perception is reality. Yeah. So the way that we, I guess what I took from that is the way we see the world becomes our reality. And when we practice mindfulness and really tune into the present moment, we find gladness and we find optimism and hope. And it's a practice. You have to keep remembering to do it. So Remind, I'll give you a tiny little droplet into Remind. So Remind, we teach mindfulness meditation to organizations, teams, community groups, and we also have an online course, which we're actually just opened enrollments for the next cohort, which starts November 1st. So that's 6 weeks online. And then apart from that, we do custom courses for organizations. So we go in and work with what you're needing and how it needs to be shaped in your organization. And we roll it out, creating mindful cultures in workplaces and everywhere that we can, really. So if you're interested more in what Remind does, or implementing this in your workplaces, or joining our online course soon, go to remind.nz and it's all there. You can follow us on Instagram too. So thank you so much for coming, and hope that you find some inspiration to practice meditation and maybe go on a mindful walk in nature. Cool. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.